Hi, everyone. Welcome to Restitch America, where we mend the fabric of our nation, one thread, one story at a time. Today, I am joined by someone whose voice I deeply respect. Her name is Anna Matson. Anna is an independent thinker, a health and wellness advocate, and the co-founder recently of a local quarterly newspaper. And she's also deeply involved in community life and creativity. And I know one of her favorite pastimes is to sew. And we're going to talk about that today. And also, one thing I wanted to bring up is she was one of the people who reported the attack in Grand Blanc, Michigan. So we're going to ask her some of her experiences there and what lessons she learned from that experience. But before we begin, I would like to remind you to go and follow this podcast if you're not already following it. And then also go to willfulpositivity.com. Willfulpositivity.com is our community where if you subscribe, you're going to receive daily devotionals from me as well as daily articles from me. Now, these articles are so important. And the reason for that is I use the articles as the basis for our podcast discussions. So if you read the articles in advance, the podcast is going to be so much more valuable to you because you will know the themes that are going to be in the discussion, and you will also have the opportunity to be prepared to hear what our guest is going to talk about. So take the opportunity. It only takes a few seconds to go to willfulpositivity.com. And as soon as you get to that page, just enter your email, click subscribe, and you will start receiving daily devotionals and articles from me. Now, there are so many more things we plan to bring to you. And one of those things is at the end of every episode, we are going to ask our guests a final question. And the answer to that final question will only be available to subscribers of willfulpositivity.com. So go ahead, take a moment and subscribe to willfulpositivity.com. And then finally, share this podcast and give us a 5-star review. The only way we continue to build this platform is with your support. So thank you for being here, and let's dive into our episode today. All right, Anna, welcome to the show. How are you
Thank
feeling
you.
this morning?
I am doing good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
That's awesome. And I have been waiting to talk to you for so long. And I wanted to give a little bit of background on how I know Anna. So Anna and I had the opportunity to meet at Turning Point USA Student Action Summit. And I know with the previous episode, the other guest that I had was also someone I met at that summit. And I just wanted to highlight the fact that, for all the, weird things we've been hearing about Charlie Kirk, he brought together a good set of people who love this country.
Mm-hmm.
And so I met a lot of people while I was there that have become my friends, and I follow them on social media. And I want America to hear the caliber of people who have been brought together by that movement. And all
Yeah,
of us are,
I love that event. That was my favorite event. I mean, exactly what you're talking about. I'm very big on the Maha side, and Charlie Kirk just welcomed Maha with open arms. And a lot of people that are in the Make America Healthy Again movement are independent or even Democrat. And they have been welcomed in through Charlie Kirk into the Republican Party. So it's just been a really beautiful thing to see. And I never felt like uncomfortable saying I was independent at all. Like that was okay. It's okay to disagree on topics, and we just had conversations.
I
It was a
know,
great experience.
I loved it. And so, Anna, I wanted to do a little bit of getting to know you. So your story has been inspiring to me, and I think it marries very beautifully with the article we're going to be discussing today. So the title of the article, as I said before, is United in What Matters. As you all know, our country is going through a severe, I would say, period of division. We are completely polarized,
Mm-hmm.
and it is exactly what you said. You are part of the Maha movement. A few months ago, a few years ago, we would have thought that that would most likely be left of center,
Mm-hmm.
right? But today, somehow, Maha is now right wing, and not just right wing, but extreme right wing. And so How have things changed? Tell us a little bit about your background and how you started in this movement.
Man, how much time do you have? It's just so funny how life works. I mean, my story is definitely not conventional. I didn't think about being in politics my whole life. I just fell into it. That's the best way as I that I can describe it. I actually went to school for marketing, specifically market research. I love data. I love math. I love like consumer behavior, just why people, well, I initially started looking into like why people buy things. And then I didn't want to be like a salesperson and I didn't want to encourage people to be more consumerist. Is that the word? I guess. Just buy more
Consumption focus,
materialist. How about that?
exactly.
So, but I love like the foundation of market research, and just getting like consensus and everything. And so I graduate and there were no jobs in my state. And if I wanted a job, I would have to leave the state. But I love Michigan. I didn't want to leave. So I was like, okay, I know what to do. They've told me what to do my whole life. Since the bachelor's didn't work out, I'm going to go get my master's. And that still didn't work out. um, and just at the
What did you get
time,
your master's in?
marketing as well.
Okay.
So then I was getting married and I got my engagement pictures done and they turned out awful. And the photographer, I mean, it was nothing like the photographer's website. I was like, what is going on? And I had a friend that knew stuff about photography and I'm sending it to her and I'm like, I don't know what to tell her. Like all I know is like this photo's too orange and this is that and she's like telling me like, okay, tell her this, tell her that. And the photographer is just like, it's just awful. Like the best thing I could say is that she stole the photos that were on her website. Like that's the only thing I can think of. And out of that rage I said, how hard can it be? That's what I joke around. I said, my mom gave me the how hard can it be gene. So I started learning everything about photography. I was on YouTube. I mean, screw college at this point. YouTube, man. So I was on YouTube like 12 hours a day, learning how to use a camera, how to edit, how lighting works, how posing works, like all the things. And within 6 months, I got a little hobby camera on Marketplace. Within 6 months, I upgraded to a professional camera that I actually still use today. It was like top of the line at the time and still good today. And within a year, I grew a 6-figure photography business. So it was nothing like I thought in my life. Then at the time, so this was like 2020 that I started doing all this. So like I grew that. That's something I don't even talk about enough. I grew that 6-figure business during COVID when everything was locked down. So then, at first I was a good girl during COVID, and I was like, okay, 2 weeks to slow the spread, mask up, social distance. And
Hmm.
as time went on, things just didn't make sense to me. When the vaccines were introduced, I'm like, okay, back in 7th grade science class, I learned that you need to have placebo studies, they need to be long term, all this stuff. Like, how do we know this vaccine has been tested for what, 6 months, if that? How do we know how people are going to react to it in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years? Like, yeah, like maybe it prevents COVID, but does it make you infertile? That's the question I had at the time. And turns out today it actually does. It does reduce fertility. So I had that question right at the time. And then, so I started getting away from the left at that point and went further right because I'm like, whoa, like my body, my choice, right? And then 2 years later, Roe v. Wade happens. And I'm like, whoa. And I had never even thought about abortion before, ever. And at this point, I'm like, okay, why are they telling me what I can and cannot do? I don't like that. So then I started pushing away from both sides because I'm like, okay, people are using this, my body, my choice, as a weapon when it's convenient for them. Because both sides say it when it comes to abortion, but then the other side, it's for medical. I'm my body, my choice across the board. Don't tell me what to do with my body. Um, up to a certain extent. Abortion, I'm very moderate on. I will say, I don't think you should get an abortion at your third or even second trimester. But I think people need to be given information, have informed consent. And I believe most people will make the right decision for them and their family, their child, if given the right information.
Mhm.
So, through my own health journey, I just saw how completely corrupt the medical system is. I had doctors that just told me that I was like making things up. Turns out the birth control I was on was giving me the same symptoms that I was telling my doctor about, and they said it was just me. I'm like, okay. And then I find out actually that's a known symptom of the birth control I was on. So I started to distrust the medical system so bad. So when the presidential, I swear I'm wrapping up soon. So when the presidential race started to come up, I said, you know what? I'm not going to look at party labels. I'm just going to look at the person and their policy. That's it. So I went one by one. Every single person that was running for president, I looked into. And I came across RFK Jr., and he had a Joe Rogan episode. And when he started talking about vaccines, I actually went to go research to try to prove him wrong because nobody wants to be anti vax. And he wasn't wrong about anything. He's right. And I'm like, wow, so I'm going to be called crazy now and all this and that. But once you know the truth, it's hard to ever go back. So at this point, I actually created anonymous accounts because I'm still doing the photography and I didn't want my political views to get intermixed with my business. So I made an anonymous X account and started posting stuff. And like it started doing really well. And all I was doing is I was taking what was happening and just like exposing the hypocrisy on both sides of the aisle. And when people would smear RFK Jr., I'd be like, actually, here's the facts. And it just blew up. So in like 6 months of that, I decided, okay, I'm going to close my photography and I'm just going to like report on the politics, national politics. At the same time, I'm starting to get involved in local politics. So yeah, I mean, I'm just doing a little bit of everything at this point. But I just feel so fulfilled in what I'm doing now because there's been things that I've actually been able to see difference in. For example, there was someone that posted on TikTok about they smelled something in the Grand River, huge river on the west side of my state. And they were like, it looks like there's like oil in it or something, and the smell is terrible. And I posted about it. I called a whole bunch of people. I called Eagle, which is Michigan's EPA, and got them on it within a day. And it wouldn't have happened without my huge audience. Like we brought so much attention to that issue that within the day we had them there cleaning up the spill. So it's very rewarding that I see these things. I've even talking about health, I just did like a whole big research, in-depth articles, videos about how polyester clothing is actually making people infertile. It's really bad for us. It's microplastics going into our skin and everything. And just a couple weeks later, the administration put out the MAHA report, and that's one of the things they're going to study now. Now, I don't know if it had anything to do with my reporting, but I like to think it did.
That's awesome. Now, this this is what I meant when I said I'm impressed by Anna and everything she's doing. And for me personally, just coming from an immigrant perspective, I look at this and say this is the American dream, the ability to, decide if you don't want to use your college degree and go do something completely different and have the resources, the ability, access to information to be able to go and get things done.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be a spectator in America. You can participate and you can actually make a difference, right? And that's something
Mm-hmm.
that I really cherish.
Well,
So
and that's something that me and you, that's how we bonded, is that my mother came here from Italy. So I'm first generation Italian American. So we were talking about that, and it was so exciting to
yeah,
hear the different perspectives and everything. And even recently, so you brought up that I started a local newspaper, and the people, that are unethical in town and don't want their corruption exposed, they started saying, well, you're not a journalist. Who are you? Where are your credentials? And I'm like, here in America, anyone can pursue a passion and make it into reality. And
Exactly.
that's the beauty of our country.
I love it. Now, I don't know where to begin if I ever decided to start a newspaper. So before we jump into the meat of our discussion today, tell us a little bit, what does it take to launch a local newspaper? I saw your announcement. I saw was it a mayor and some city leaders come together to
It was my county commissioner. He
county
came.
commissioner? Okay.
Um, so I could not have done it without my team. There's two other incredible women in my town, and they're so fierce. And I went up to them one day and I said, listen, I've had this dream. There's no way I can do it alone. With everything I have going on, there's no way I can do it alone. And it's great because like we disagree on things, which is again, it's just a great thing that we
Mm-hmm.
can differ and it makes us better. And they were on board right away. So then we just started writing articles. We're like, okay, let's sit down. What are like the current events going on? And we don't want it to all be like negative and everything. So like what's some fun stuff we can put in there? My town is very historic. Okay, so let's put something about history in there. And it wasn't even just like us three girls that did this. There was so much community support, and it's so funny too because we had so many people help us with this, and yet we were able to keep it a secret even though I didn't tell anyone you needed to keep it a secret, but everyone did. It was so funny. So we had someone from the historic commission help with some information to write an article about that. And we talked about a local legend. I sat down with someone who's been in town for like over 50 years and has done a lot. And we have the two girls are just great with all of the businesses, and they just went out and were like, hey, like, do you want to buy an ad? We want to make the paper free to the community, so your ad helps do that. And we sold out of ads. We actually had to turn a couple away. So for the first edition, where we had no sample or anything, and people just took a chance on us. But it takes the support of the community to make it possible. And the success of the paper not only was in the support of the small businesses and my team and the community, it was also in how fact-based we were able to be, because we have had raving reviews from people all across the political spectrum. I mean, people are just obsessed with it. They keep calling us, telling us to go monthly. I'm like, guys, I can't do all that. We're going to stick to quarterly right now. But I mean, people are just saying it's just the facts. Like, I just love it. It's just the facts, no opinions. It gets to the point. Like, so that has been the success. So then we went to two different local printers, got quotes, and that process was a lot easier than I thought. I would say the hardest part was actually just like making the layout of the paper. But once you do that the first time, the layout's done and you just go put in new stories. One thing people don't realize with a newspaper is you actually really have to worry about word count, because like it's physical. You only have so much room to put stories. So it really makes you think about like what are the most important things to put in here. So that's been
That's
a fun challenge, honestly.
that's really cool. I just picked up on that part, which is knowing what is important to the community and making sure that you make space,
Hmm.
right, for that information. And that's part of the challenge we're having in our country, right? There is a struggle, I would say, between what is going to get me the clicks, because this is a business that has to make money, versus what is important to heal the nation, to bring us together, to identify the things that unite us versus the things that divide us. And unfortunately, everybody is going for the economic value
Yeah.
to the detriment of the unity in America. And
Hmm.
that's part of what I spoke about, I wrote about in my article. And I wanted to use your experience as someone who likes to sew as part of this analogy here. So, as you know, the name of the show is Restitch America. And the reason that we selected that title was because it seems like as America, we have been torn apart by forces, in many cases, in the night. It wasn't obvious to us how we were being torn apart. And the internet, social media, also, cable TV, all these different influences contributed in tearing us apart. And now we're torn apart. And when you tear something apart, you get all these frayed edges. So I want to pick your brain as someone who sews. What does it take to bring two parts together after they've been kind of ripped apart and all the edges are frayed? What would you consider? And let's see if we can, analogize that into our body politic.
Well, it's just funny. As you're talking, I'm like thinking about it. I always tell people I don't like to alter things because it's so much harder to do than just starting new. Like when you first sew something, it is so much easier than if something breaks. And I actually had this yesterday where I was altering a dress and I had to cut up the stitches and everything. And it is so much more difficult and time consuming. And it's actually a lot easier if you hand stitch some of those things. So I think that's it, is that when we start fresh, when we don't have like these preconceived notions in our head and labels, everyone wants to define you as a label. Like all the time, every day in my comment section, it's people trying to decide if I'm actually like a hidden Republican or hidden Democrat. And that takes so much time and so much energy away from the root issues, the real issues that we need to talk about. So that's where it takes more time to hand sew to get through to people when you have these notions in your head. But when you come in fresh, where you don't just judge a person based off a political party, then it's easier to get along. It's easier to come together.
I think another important piece of that puzzle is knowing your own values, right? Because a lot of times we are outsourcing our political ideology to third parties. And
Yeah.
because we're doing that, we basically get a download almost of our talking points, and we go into the world and begin to have conversations with people about those talking points. And so many times, and this is evident in many cases when Charlie Kirk will interview people, you would find that they are regurgitating things that they themselves don't have a true foundation in. And that
Exactly.
really tells you that, people are really outsourcing their brains to third parties. And so because people don't know their own values, it is hard for them to see common ground when that common ground is right in front of them.
And
Right.
the abortion is an example of that. Again, like I had never thought about abortion before. But then the whole media is screaming at me like abortion, like your rights are being taken away. You're going to die without your abortion. And that media, the strength of the media is so scary, to be honest with you, like how they can convince an entire population that we're all going to die unless we kill our babies. Like it's so crazy. And even in the health realm, I see it all the time. You can have thousands of people die from contaminated lettuce a year. And there have been 3 deaths from raw milk in the past 25 years. But they'll scream at you like raw milk is the enemy. It's like, okay, like people are dying from lettuce and you think raw milk is the problem. Maybe it's not the problem. Maybe lettuce isn't the problem. Maybe it's because everything, all of our food, soil, air, and water is contaminated. And that is what we need to talk about. But the media will have you thinking raw milk when really, why don't we talk about things that we all have in common? I have never met someone that's like, yeah, I want contaminated soil and food and water. I've never met someone. So it's like, why don't we focus on that? But yet everyone just has the media has us distracted against these things. Or measles is another one. Back in the day, like your grandparents probably had measles. Everyone had measles back in the day. It was just a rash. And now today someone gets measles and people think it's like this awful deadly disease. There are way more diseases that are way deadlier than measles. Healthy children do not die from measles. And if you actually look at the cases, we've had, I think, 3 or 4 measles deaths in the past 30 years, I want to say. And but they will make it seem like, okay, there's millions of kids dying from measles today. No,
Have you
there's not.
seen there's a Law and Order episode that had to do with measles,
No, I
and
haven't
it
seen that.
was you have to go find the clip, and a couple of people have put it together where they showed an episode of an old sitcom, and basically I think it was either the
It was
Brady
the
Bunch.
Brady Bunch.
I think
Yep.
so, yeah. And they were talking about measles, and it was just like a couple of days off of school,
Yep.
and that was it. And then
It's
they
only
showed the
contagious for
contrast.
2 days.
I know. And they showed a contrast with the Law and Order SVU, and it was like full containment, full like medical quarantine, and it was like school shut down. And then guess who they blamed? The
The
unvaccinated,
Yep.
right?
So
The unvaccinated
today,
kids.
in South Carolina, there was they call it an outbreak. Even if one person has measles, they call it an outbreak. So they sent like 21 unvaccinated kids home for 21 days. That doesn't even make sense because you're not even contagious for that long. You're only contagious for like 2 or 3 days from measles. So it's just like that again, the media and the fear, all common sense goes out the window.
Are you saying we're not following the science, as they say? Right?
Oh my God. I mean, I could go on and on about this. Oh my God. I just saw Kennedy the other day said that teenage girls are going through puberty 6 years earlier today than they were like 40 years ago. And this Dr. Rubin, who's just a pharma shill, he goes, how crazy is this guy to say that? And the comments are like, yeah, he's so crazy. I can't, like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. That is a fact. Back in the day, teenage girls did not start their period until like 16. And now, like 8-year-olds are starting their period. Like, that should be terrifying to people. Why is everyone just made out to be crazy when they're actually talking about science? But they'll say, he's crazy and doesn't read science. I don't know.
The way that I look at it is, you need the labels to do the heavy lifting for you when you can't use the facts to disprove what someone is saying, right?
Yep.
And so the label comes with its own baggage. It comes with its own connotations, its own prejudices, and so on. And so if you can focus on letting people adopt the label, then that label comes with all these extra benefits. So think marketing, right? You're marketing something, you want people to adopt a mindset. If you can sneak in something that is an anchor that brings all the emotion that you're seeking to engender, then the label is the thing that does the hard work, and
Yep.
nobody focuses on the facts.
Oh, I
So,
love
and
that. That's great.
that
I
is
mean,
something that is happening all over on social media. We know that, Trump, his followers, Charlie Kirk, everybody is now a fascist. Everybody is now a Nazi.
conspiracy
Everybody
theorist.
is now a conspiracy theorist. Like, those labels, because of the connotations that they have, do the heavy lifting. And so as soon as you attach that label, if it sticks, then you don't actually have to discuss what the person is talking about, right?
Yep. Wow.
And
No
that
truer words have
is
been said.
that is basically the way that the media is right now, propagating news. It's not about information. It's about, how can I leverage this label to carry all the water for me? And I want to extend this conversation to something that happened a few weeks ago in your neck of the woods in Grand Blanc, Michigan. So the reason why I wanted to bring this up was something that I thought was quite disturbing for me. And it's this idea that as Americans, we all understand that there has been some violence, and there has been a lot of history with violence. However, political violence did happen, a lot in the 60s and so on. But we have, in general, over the last decade, not been really like politically violent, except for very specific situations like the George Floyd riots and other things like January 6th and so on. So we've seen some pockets of this kind of political violence, but it seems like we are inching closer and closer to not just the fact that they happen, but a sentiment that it is justified in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what happened in Grand Blanc was, as many of you know, a person who had some kind of hatred towards Mormons or members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and decided to go to their church on Sunday, ram his truck into their building, set the building on fire, and then as the building was burning and people were jumping out, actually people came out to help because they thought someone had crashed their car, and he opened fire and killed a few people, and some people also died due to smoke inhalation. And two things happened after that experience. First, we got the normal, thoughts and prayers, which we expect to get all the time. But then there was something weird for me. And that weird thing was that there were people who called themselves Christians who came out of the woodwork and said, yes, I condemn this action, but while I'm at it, let me tell you that these Mormons are not Christians. And the thought that came to my mind is, why? I mean, if you distilled the things that Mormons do or members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints do with respect to, politics or society or community or family or charity, we would probably say that they agree, 110% with most Christians. So why did people find that opportunity to divide, especially when that group of people were struggling and suffering, had just been victims of an attack? And I was watching that day and I saw you reporting. So first, before we go into that undertone of that discussion, tell me that experience. What was it like being there reporting as it was happening?
I'm going to try to keep a cool head because it was traumatic. It was really traumatic. So I was going to my mom's house, and we had gone to the farmer's market in the morning, and it was perfect weather. I mean, it was just beautiful outside. All the fruit and veggies are in season. So we were just having such a good time talking to all the farmers and everything. We were going to go to my mom's house to spend the last day in the pool before summer's over. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, it doesn't get better than this. It's just a perfect day. And I'm sorry. This is like, it's so traumatic.
It's okay.
So I was leaving and I saw my fire department leave. And so they were in front of me. And I'm thinking, okay, I just started a local paper, so I should go see what this is about in case I need to write a story about it. And I see them leaving town. And I was like, they were already on track on the way where I was driving anyway. And I see them leaving town. And I'm like, okay, this is bad. If they're leaving town to go do mutual aid for someone else, this is bad. And now I'm in my reporter mode completely because I'm like, okay, I report on national stuff. So the minute they left our boundary, I knew that this was going to be a national story. When I showed up, I realized this is a worldwide story. And it's perfect blue sky, but in front of us, we just saw it looked like a huge dark cloud. And I told my husband, I said, is that a cloud or is that smoke? He's like, I think that's smoke. And as we're driving, I'm like, what is in that area? Look up your map. What is right there? And as we're getting closer and closer, he's like, I think it's a church. I'm like, oh my gosh, on Sunday at a church. And at this point, all I think is it's a fire. And everything was blocked off, but since I know the area, I was able to park and walk over. And when I start to walk up to people, I just hear them say, shots, shots, shots. I'm like, what do you mean shots? And they said that someone was shooting. And I'm looking around, and I mean, there's people with blood all over their clothes and everything, ambulances everywhere. And I don't know how detailed I should get, but like, this is just like the trauma I have now just from being there. I mean, there were even firefighters trying to get more water to the scene, and cars were in the way for them to do that. So they're like, go, you need to get out of here, get in your car and leave. And they had to go over the curb, and people were like, oh, but my car, I can't go over the curb. And I mean, they're literally like, F your car, go. Like, these firefighters know that there's people burning alive right now, and these people are worried about their car. It's like, come on. So I'm experiencing all of that. And I know my first responders. I've spent a lot of time at my fire departments. And so I know that they're there dealing with all of that. And I'm like, okay, I'm the only one here. I asked a couple officers if there was like a press area. They're like, and I'm like, don't worry about it. I know that's like the last thing that you need to worry about right now. So I was like, okay, I'll do a quick video from what I'm hearing. And the one guy I talked to, I went up to him and I said, do you know what's going on? Like, what happened? And he's like, someone just hit their car into the church. It sounded like a bomb went off. And I started shooting, set a fire. And he's like, my mom's still in there. And we turn around and we just see flames. And it's like, okay, that really puts life into perspective right in that moment for you. And he was visiting from South Africa. I can't remember. I'm sorry if it was South Africa or South America. And turns out his mom passed. And then like I said, my newspaper came out the very next day, actually, which was a really good uplift for my community, honestly. It was just something to look forward to. And I went and dropped it off to an elderly woman. And she tells me she was in the church at the time. And she lost two of her really good friends. And as this is happening, the haters in my town, there's like 5 of them that just scream about anything I do. It doesn't matter what I do. I call it now Anna derangement syndrome. So they start to see that people are posting about the newspaper. And so they go on the smear attack right away. Like, she calls herself a journalist. What are her credentials? Blah, blah, blah. All it is an opinion page. It's not actually news. Turns out none of them actually read the paper. But I go give her a paper and she tells me this. And I know that people are like screaming online about the paper, good and bad. And I'm like, none of that even matters. Nothing matters right now. Like, this is real life, what this woman is dealing with. And people want to complain about a newspaper that they haven't even read. Like, it just puts your life into perspective. Like, what are we complaining about all the time? So it also, later in the day, when I finally did go, like, I posted the videos about what was going on, but I really did not spend too much time on social media. So I did not actually see any of like the attacks on Mormons. I didn't see any of that. So later, when I actually go on social media, people were like in my comments saying that, oh, Grand Blanc's really close to Dearborn, and they were trying to make it like a Muslim thing. And it had nothing to do with Muslims. And Dearborn is like an hour away. Like, no one just casually goes from Dearborn to Grand Blanc. Like, that's not an easy drive, I guess. Like, I don't know. It's just the ignorance. People do this all the time. Anytime there's an event like this. There was another one in Michigan a few months ago, Traverse City. There was a stabbing. And immediately people said, oh, it must be an illegal alien. And I said, you guys should really take a step back before you just jump to that, because you're going to look like an idiot if that's not the case. Turns out he was an American and lived in the area, and a judge let him go knowing that he had mental health problems, and he had actually a huge criminal history and was found not guilty by way of insanity. So should have been in a mental institution, and a judge let him go after like 2 years. So now everyone was screaming about illegal aliens, that it completely took the attention away from a real problem that we should actually be fighting to solve. That my state and a lot of states are soft on crime, and that we're not actually getting people the help they need. So where's that conversation? But no, like we're just going to be distracted about these hot button issues that get people all riled up. So I just wish when moments like this happen, people take a step back and just look at what really matters in life. Like your family, your friends, your community, those are the things that matter. Putting these labels, exactly what you were talking about, putting these labels just to spread hate, does that matter? Is that making us better? Is that reducing violence? Is that increasing your political party's agenda? None of that is helping. But if we actually focus on actually bringing people together and solving root issues, like we all agree, left, right, center, all agree that there's a huge mental health problem in this country. But everyone's so distracted by everything else that we're not focusing on the thing that we all agree on. So that's what I wish when stuff like this happens, that we need to cool it a little bit and really think about what matters in life.
For a long time, I have been thinking about doing this PSA, and this is how I imagine it. So, as a photographer, maybe you can give me some pointers. But I imagine like a scene in a grocery store, and in the grocery store, what happens is you see a man who is helping an old lady, or a man who's helping someone get to the top of the shelf, and one person asks the person, hey, can you help me grab this? And they help each other and they walk away, and then you show a shot of someone grabbing, helping someone with a load into their car. And basically you see people living in a community helping and supporting each other, and then you will show in the PSA those same people getting home, and then as they get home they get on their computers, and immediately they're on opposite sides. And
Yeah.
now they don't know it, but now the person that you just helped, that you just said thank you to, that person is now the person you are insulting and yelling at and calling names online. And show that juxtaposition and say, like, are you really feeling what you're feeling? Are you being manipulated? Are you
Exactly.
being placed in these echo chambers that create this divide, when for the most part, when we all come to the farmers market, it's not about politics, right? It's about community. It's about helping each other. And so the question I ask you here is, how do you personally resist the pressure to pick a side or conform to a political tribe?
Well, I mean, facts, I guess, because both political parties have been in power at a time. Uh, yeah, the Senate does have this filibuster vote of 60 votes, but I actually just learned recently that you can go nuclear if you wanted to and override that. I actually didn't know that was an option. So immediately when I found out that that was an option, I'm like, seriously, guys. So there has been, not too distant future, I think Biden's first year or two, Democrat House, Senate, and presidency. What did they get done? Then we have right now Republican House, Senate, presidency. Are we better today? Well, I would say we are better today than 4 years ago, but have we done major things? Is life more affordable? Is education better? No. So that's what I think about, is like each party has had their time in power and life has not gotten better for people. You can say, yes, the immigration, Trump deserves credit for that we closed the border. That needed to happen. I think we are safer today than we were a year ago. But other than that, what has gotten better? Not the economy. Not like I said, not education, all of that. So That's what I think about both parties. They say all of these things, but they both are paid off by their donors. Democrats will say, we need to tax the rich and billionaires need to pay their fair share. And I believe that the supporters actually want that. But the Democrat politicians, they say that, but they don't actually want to do that because their donors are the billionaires. Do you think they're going to tax their donors? Uh, Republicans, one big criticism I have of Republicans is that, yes, pro life, they are very pro life, but why are we only talking about when the baby is in the womb? Why don't we start talking about how we can make life easier so moms can actually feel empowered to bring that baby to term and to have a successful pregnancy and afterward? Like, it is ridiculous that moms, if they're lucky, have 6 weeks maternity leave. That's crazy. When you look at the science, moms should be with their children for at least 6 months. The breast milk is absolutely essential, and moms cannot be taken away from their babies in the first 6 months. So if Republicans cared about life, why aren't we talking about that and how we can make that happen? And a lot of it doesn't even mean that the government needs to pay for that 6 months, but we really need to do a lot to bring wages up so families can live on one wage like they used to. So, sorry, going on a rant, but that's just what I think. I just think that there's these core issues on both sides that they both, when they're in power, they don't fix. They don't do anything meaningful. So that's why, in exactly the hypocrisy of my body, my choice. That's a perfect example. Anytime you feel like you want to pick one side, just remember my body, my choice. Oh, when it's convenient for my side.
Yeah, definitely something that is systemic on both sides is, of course, as the Bible says, take the mote out of your eye before you could, talk
Yes.
about, or the beam in your eye. You are pointing out the mote in somebody's eye, and you have a beam in your
Mm-hmm.
eye, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's definitely something that is happening in our country. And as we kind of draw to the end of our episode today, I wanted to ask you, what do you think local community can teach the nation about unity?
I think local politics is where it's at. I mean, you have to get involved locally. So many people scream about what's happening at the national level when we don't have much control. The higher you go up, the less control we have. Local politics can bring people together because there's very few partisan issues at the local level. At the local level, you're dealing with your police, your fire, your parks, your roads, water, sewer, maybe electric.
Trash
Some
collection, think Philadelphia recently.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that impact your local community, which in turn impacts your property taxes, your schools. Like, if you want better education, don't be screaming about the Department of Education at the federal level. You need to be screaming about education with your local school board. They have a lot of power. So, or your state board of education. And these issues are not partisan. Okay, are nice roads a right or left issue? Are nice parks a right or left issue? Don't we all, when people may say defund the police, but when it comes to it, don't we all want our police to be able to be out and patrol the area so we could feel safe? Don't we want the fire department and the ambulance to come when we call them? Those are not partisan issues. So that's where I think people can really get their guard down. In my town, there's people that I agree with, that I disagree with, on like that may be independent, maybe on the other side of the aisle. It doesn't even matter. We don't go into these meetings and talk about political parties because there are no parties locally. It's just about how do we make everyday life better for each of us.
And thank you so much for sharing that. We are at the end of our episode today. And Anna, This has been amazing. The conversation today has been amazing. Um, my goal for this show was always to create a platform where we can have civil conversation. We need to relearn how to be civil with one
Yes.
another. There are kids who are growing up today who have never seen a united America,
Hmm.
even though we call ourselves united, right? We They have seen this divide continue to grow and this chasm continue to grow, and we need to begin to model, you know, good civil discourse. And that's what I'm hoping to do. And it has been great chatting with you. This is your first, I'm hoping it's not the last opportunity to be on the show. But give us a little bit of how people can find you if they want to support and follow you. Where do they go?
So my website is just annamatson.com. So you can pretty much find everything there, my podcast, my social accounts. But most social accounts are Anna R. Matson. Other than YouTube, it's just Anna Matson. But yeah, I'm very active. I feel like X is the best platform just for free speech. But I do love my TikTok and Instagram. I gotta tell you that. Instagram's been a new favorite since Zuckerberg has stopped censoring people.
Seriously,
I never thought that I would go back to a Zuckerberg platform,
I
but
know.
it has been surprisingly good. So I'm hopeful. But yeah, those are the best places that I get my podcast is if people only knew.
Oh,
Like I said, everything you can find at my website.
awesome. And we will put the links in the description of this video. So if you're looking for any of those links, just look at the description of the video. Thank you. Now we have one more question for Anna. However, the answer to that question will be exclusive to our subscribers, our paid subscribers. So I'm going to ask that question and then we will wrap up the show. If you want to hear Anna's answer to that question, please subscribe to willfulpositivity.com, and you can do that by going to willfulpositivity.com. So here is the question, or a couple of questions. I'm going to ask those questions and then we're going to wrap up. So we've talked about unity in values rather than uniformity. How has your faith helped you walk that balance, especially in moments of division, and especially in moments where division felt easier than dialogue? So that's one. Number
Yeah.
two, have you ever lost friendships or faced backlash because because of your public stances? And what did that teach you about conviction versus connection? And then finally, when chaos and disunity seems overwhelming, what gives you courage to keep speaking up and choosing hope over cynicism? So if you want to hear Anna's answers to these questions, go to willfulpositivity.com and subscribe. So thank you all for joining us today on Restitch America. If this conversation resonated with you, share it with someone and follow the podcast, share the podcast with your friends and family. And you can find more episodes wherever you can find podcasts. So go and follow the show and support us. And until next time, keep Restitching America one story, one thread at a time. Have a good day.